Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for joining us on Safeguarding Redefined. Now, the role of being a designated safeguarding lead or any role within safeguarding is really difficult. However, that's not where you first started, was it?
No, in my previous life, I was in the police for 14 years, 12 of which were within the child abuse investigation unit. So working within child protection, which has always been my passion and still is my passion. That's what I did previously. And then I wanted to stay within child protection, but wanted to work within a different arena and education. Never worked in education. So I went and worked in a pupil referral unit for a couple of years to kind of get a bit of a feel. Is that what I want to do? I wanted to work with vulnerable children. And then luckily a job came up in an ideal setting as a safeguarding officer.
I mean, they're not exactly easy jobs, are they? Especially working within the police and then going to a referral unit and then into education. I mean, you've really kind of gone for it. What was it that you kind of find as a passion to support people who are vulnerable?
I suppose within it's being there, the bigger picture, having worked in the police and now obviously within an education setting. I'm so aware that you only see a snippet of our young people's lives, particularly in school. You see what their life is at home. But obviously, in my role in the police, you have a bigger understanding of what is going on for them outside of school. So when they're at home, when they're out in the community, what is going on and having that full picture. But it's being that, I suppose, that sounding board, that constant, particularly in school. What I feel is so important, particularly within child protection, is we are so often the constant in the children's lives and their families' lives. We don't change for a very long time. We're here often for 5, 6, 7 years of a young person's life, and are that consistent factor in that life. We really know what is going on, and that is so crucial.
Have you found that from the job that you had before working for the police has really benefited you now that you work in education? So you're able to see from both sides and have that full understanding.
Completely, absolutely. Having, previously in the police, obviously dealing with, for example, a disclosure that then led into a criminal investigation, you deal with the latter part of it, and then obviously the court process and that part of it. It gives you such invaluable insight into what is really important at the beginning of an investigation. So that moment a child makes a disclosure, and so often it is in school, to someone they trust, how crucial it is in relation to the recording of that disclosure, the sharing of that information, and all of that. So now working as I do at the beginning of the investigation process, when it is in that arena, really, really important. But also understanding the importance of interagency working with different agencies and organisations that have all got their own priorities, their own objectives, all of which, the child is the centre, that is the focus for everyone that works with children. But we all have our own other pressures, priorities, and things that is our role, our objective to be dealing with. But absolutely crucial when you're dealing with something as important as child protection.
Have you found that the impact of being on the front line within the police has had an impact on maybe what you see now? Do you kind of like have this emotional kind of response that's probably a little bit deeper than some people because you've seen the worst in your previous career?
Um, I honestly don't know. I think because I've worked in child protection for so long now. I mean, it's kind of like nearly 20 years. I think it's different. Like now in school, the difference is the children, the families, and you obviously know potentially the outcome when there is, for example, a police investigation or a child gets removed from the family home. You know that, and you feel it because you know the children and you know the family, whereas you maybe don't have the absolute um, finer detail that when you were in the police and dealing with it, maybe in court or taking the video interview of the child, you're not exposed to that now in school. So they're really different, I think. I I feel as strongly now as I did in the police, but just in a different way. You're just have got a different relationship with the people you're working with. But I feel absolutely as strongly and feel as passionate about it. It is different because you know the children and they know you. And sometimes you've known them for years, or you've known the parents for years, or you've known their older siblings. It's really different. And you might have other family members within the school. We have a lot of that. So a lot of relations are in the school as well. So you really see that ripple effect after something happening as well. Whereas I suppose in the police, you might deal with it right through to the end in court. But then you move away often from that family. You may have some contact with the family, but you don't actually see their day-to-day life and the absolute impact things have. Whereas in school you do. So you really see the beginning and right at the end at school, because you're still involved in those children, those families' lives after something may have happened years and years ago. You're still involved.
I think I found that all really, really difficult, especially like you have to make some really difficult decisions. You have to make some kind of like contact with someone, and it does impact obviously the young person as well as their family. And then you still have to hover around. You still have to see them
Yeah.
walking past the gates, or like, when there's like parents' evenings and stuff like that. Would you say that that's an edge to your role now that's like slightly more difficult than what you had to do with? So you mentioned that, you could just not have to see the parents again, or the family again. So that would have made it slightly easier. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and that's why wherever you're working with the child protection, you have to constantly, that the child is at the center of this. What is in the best interest of that child? Sometimes, other people may not think that is, but it's making sure that is always the focus for everyone that's is working with the child. And sometimes those decisions that are made may, because you know the child and you know the family, be even more difficult because you know the impact that is having on the child, even though it is being done for the right reason. And you still potentially have to have that professional relationship with the family. And that's why it's so crucial that we're not here to judge in school. We've got to, and we do, we are objective. As emotive as this field is, you cannot be subjective. You have to be objective about the most emotive subject, which is really contradictory, isn't it? And really difficult. But it is just reminding yourself of that, because working in partnership with agencies is crucial. Working in partnership with parents and carers is absolutely crucial. And that can be really challenging at times, really challenging. And you have some really difficult conversations. And then the next day you have to greet them on the school gate, or they're coming in for parents' evening, or it is really difficult. And no one else in the school will know what's going on other than the safeguarding team. It is really, really difficult.
The role of safeguarding lead can be exceptionally isolating. What's your experiences, especially probably going from what is essentially a bigger team to what being a smaller team? What are your experiences of having that isolation? How and what are your top tips for kind of like challenging that?
No, absolutely. I mean, having been in a large team in the police I'm fortunate I'm in a large school. We have got a reasonable size safeguarding team. So we've got 5 designated safeguarding leads in the school, a team of 1 DSL and 4 deputies. So we are a relatively large team, because absolutely it could be isolating. And I think when I started, there was a real gap in relation to sort of liaison between DSLs between schools within the county. We had forums, they'd stopped, there was a real gap. So a number of years ago now, I set up a local liaison group between DSLs in our working group in the local area of schools, a lot of who I was building up really good and strong working relationships with, because we had overlapping families, we had children moving between our schools. So we were regularly in contact, and that instantly, building those relations instantly kind of externally stopped me being isolated, and then set up this liaison group, which we meet half termly, which has been invaluable. And I'll kind of come back to that in a minute. I think within school, as I said, I'm fortunate I'm in a team of 5. We regularly meet up as a team of DSLs. Weekly, we meet up. We might test a case, troubleshoot a case, give updates. We've got a log of all our vulnerable children. So we are constantly talking to each other, challenging each other, kind of sharing ideas, best ways to potentially work with that child and their family. So that instantly stops you feeling isolated within school. And I'm really fortunate, and I hope lots of schools work in that way. But I can knock at any time on my head's door and talk about something if I need to, and kind of discuss, is this the best way to deal with this or this? Because we may have different knowledge of that family, or we've got different relationships with that family, just to kind of suggest some different ways to work with that family in the best way. So in school, that's been absolutely brilliant and stopped that what could be. I mean, I am the safeguarding officer. I'm the only person that doesn't have another role. So it could be, but there's always two or three of us on site. So we regularly would talk to each other about cases. And then, as I said, externally, having that liaison group and close working relationship with the designated safeguarding leads in other local schools, primary and secondary, and some of our specialist settings as well. And we regularly meet, even if it's just, we've met in the last week or two following the summer, just to kind of touch base for an hour. What happened over the summer? Thoughts on any, the changes to keeping children safe, just that general thing. Then some meetings will have guest speakers that will have organised, or other DSLs will have organised to come in, which again, absolutely invaluable to share knowledge of what other agencies can offer, what their pressures might be, what their priorities might be, what they actually can offer. Sometimes you're not aware of actually what they can offer, and that's a wealth of knowledge suddenly you know about. And again, as DSL's talking, that's something else we share. Have you considered this organisation? They actually offer that. Didn't realise that. And that's absolutely invaluable as well. So those things in place internally and externally have really, kind of reinforced that actually I am not isolated, because being isolated can actually be really dangerous, particularly when you're working in child protection. You need to be challenged as a professional. You need to discuss cases. It can be really dangerous to be isolated.
How would someone go about starting something like this? Would they communicate with loads of local schools and basically just say, look, we're going to meet, or would you like to meet at this time on this date at our location? And then they just make an agenda. Is it something as simple as that?
Absolutely. That is what I did. I literally thought that, why don't we meet? There used to be regular meetings within county, which obviously were huge. Why don't we just meet up locally? There's sort of about 25 people that are invited. It's a mixture. Obviously, not everyone can always attend. Absolutely. And we meet every half term, but I literally put out an email to schools and said, I'm proposing we meet this day to come to our school. And actually now we do them all online. Just, everyone is so strapped for time, but we generally do at 2:00, generally Monday, but again, we can be flexible, and we just set the date and try and get a guest speaker along if we want to, or we just meet as a group. But it is as simple as that. And slowly over the years, the group is just sort of bigger. People have asked to join, or I've kind of put out the invite to secondary schools that are maybe slightly further afield, but still we could have children going there. And as professionals, we know what is in the local community. Like, we know our community, we know our families, we know the pressures that they're under, but also we know what's available in the local community to support them. We know what organisations are there. And actually, I think the majority of us don't move, in that we've been in our schools for considerable lengths of time. So we really do know what is available out there to help people. I do find that is often a massive struggle, maybe when working with other organisations, and they don't live in the local area, don't necessarily know what's available sometimes. So that's absolutely crucial.
I think that's a fantastic initiative. And yes, there are local authorities that do put on support groups and network groups, but this is just a great idea for making sure that you link with, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to just go secondary schools with secondary schools. Can it be like,
No,
people from
We've got
early years.
secondary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Whoever, and these were a lot the kind of the initial like core, I suppose, that were invited with those DSLs that I'd quite quickly built relationships with because I was new to the role as well. I was phoning other DSLs, with our overlapping families to talk about things. So it kind of, and then it just grew out of that really. But no, it's a really simple thing to do. Head teachers do it. So why don't safeguarding leads do it? And even though now actually there is something within county, but it is so much bigger and our county is so big and so diverse. The issues that one area of our county have got are not the same as the issues that we've got here. And they're not aware, maybe in the north of the county, what we've got more towards the centre and south of the county. So no, it's really simple to set up.
Well, I highly recommend everyone who's listening to this arrange their own meetings. I would only assume that you definitely don't book your meetings on a Friday afternoon.
Absolutely not. No, no.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, joining us today. It's been really interesting, and especially learning about the differences between your previous career working in the police and how that has impacted your role as DSL. So thank you so much for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the follow button so you don't miss another episode of Safeguarding Redefined.